lies will be exposed.
Hey, everybody. Cheers and salutations. We got ourselves a super gigantic show for all of you today. And what better way to start off the new year than with my second guest across the political aisle? We might have our disagreements, but the one thing we do agree on is that we are living in a corrupt two-party system. We got to fight for third parties and independence. And already 10 days into 2025, I don't think anything that has transpired so far was on anyone's bingo card. Give it up for a good friend and colleague of mine, Larry Sharpe, host of the Larry Sharpe Show. Larry, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, my friend. So happy to be here with you this glorious morning. Last night, I was thinking to myself, what should I have for dinner? And I thought I could have some pizza. So that, yes, I should probably have some New York style pizza. And then someone said, how about Chicago style pizza? I said, no, I don't want cake. I want pizza. That's why I decided to have some pizza. That's what I said. Yes. Good morning, my friend from Chicago.
Good morning. It's a cold winter morning. It's snowing here. Finally, the first kind of snow we've had. We didn't get any snow in December, but one thing that I wasn't really expecting was the upheaval and absolute systematic shakedown, breakdown of our entire political system. Because when I reached out to you before we had you on, I definitely wanted to talk about the homelessness crisis that's impacting both of our cities, but also the changing landscape for 2025. And it's becoming abundantly clear that we are witnessing the slow decline and extinction of the Democrats. Now, to be fair, they can recover. But Larry, with the aftermath of what happened on November 5th, and now going forward, as we are in January, Trump being certified, but now also we'll be talking about this later in the show after the interview, Trump being sentenced now. But this is an overall end of one political party. So I think what a lot of people want to know is, how can this be a benefit or a boon for third parties? And what does it say overall about the political landscape for 2025 in Washington, D.C.? Because the Democrats are officially on the ropes after 8 years of progressives and independents warning them that this would happen. Larry, take it away.
Yes. Look, there's a couple things to realize. It's the leadership versus the actual people, right? The leadership of the Democratic Party is doing just fine. You know how many of them were replaced after their horrible losses last year? One. One was replaced because the guy retired. That was it. With the exception of retirement, they all were voted right back into leadership. All the same leaders are still there. None of them have left. They all make tons of money. They're all doing just fine. New York State leadership, my governor, your governor, still in charge, still doing exactly the same thing. Nothing's changed. They didn't all of a sudden go, man, we should change our policies. Nope, they've learned literally nothing. Here's what they would do, and history has taught us this. This comes back from when Reagan was popular, when Bush was popular, after 9/11. The Democrats, once they get their butt kicked, they do one of two things. They go, we got our butt kicked. Let's be quiet or let's double down. But all they're looking for is one thing: the Republicans to not do a good enough job. And let me explain how that's going to work in a second. And then Democrats will find Bill Clinton 3.0. Bill Clinton 1.0 was the guy who he was the guy who pretended he was left, but wasn't left, but was super cool and charismatic. Then they made Bill Clinton 2.0, Barack Obama. Exactly the same guy. He was cool and he pretended he was left, but he wasn't. And they're going to find the next guy. That's how they got rid of the Reaganites. That's how to get rid of the Bushites. That's how to get rid of the Trumpites. That will be their style. So the key is, what will Republicans do? Now, they have a problem, to be forward with you. They have a problem, too. The Republican Party is not a party of the working class. However, it is now filled with working class voters. That's true. So how do you square that circle when you haven't been a part of working class, but now you have a whole bunch of working class voters in there? Now, the advantage of Trump is that Trump is a very unique individual. If anyone could make the party of working class, it would be Trump if it can be done.
That's a key word, if there, because it's Trump we're talking about, who is very close to a lot of big tech bros and
100%. Yes. So I'm not saying it can be done, but I'm saying if anyone can't do it, it's him. And here's why. He'll change his mind in 5 seconds. As long as he gets what he wants, he'll change his mind in 5 seconds. He would do it. Guys like Steve Bannon and that ilk now, they have moved closer towards working class because they don't like the tech bros and they don't like Elon Musk. So there is a chance. I'm not saying it's a high chance. I'm not. But I'm saying there's a chance that the Republican Party could become more of a working class party. If that happens, that is the end of the Democratic Party. That's your point. If that does happen, they're finished.
That is an interesting concept. I think the one thing that puts a huge pause on that is, and again, I'm surprised that it hasn't gotten over 100 million views on X and that more people aren't talking about it. But Unusual Whales recently posted their updated portfolio of congressmen and women, both Democrats and Republicans, that made a huge financial killing in 2024.
Yep.
Have you seen the recent documents that came out?
I haven't, but that's what I was saying. They're all doing just fine. That was my entire point. I knew that already.
Yeah, they're all doing that. And by the way, folks, if you can, please be careful if you're going to be using that app to try and trade like a congressman or a woman, because I've always given this warning. If you try and do even a fraction of what they're doing, you won't see the light of day ever. But then again, just be careful, fly on the radar.
Yes.
Financial expert or anything of that nature. But the pushback I would have to give it in regards to the Republicans is that, this is a party that, capitalized, or at least Trump was able to transform and capitalize into something that works for him. And with the amount of influence that Elon Musk and other people of influence, especially in the big tech industry, I think a snowflake's chance in Vulcan's Forge has a better chance of landing and being a whole than the Republican Party being a working class party. I mean, there is always that rare possibility, but I don't think anyone of us should hold our breath. So then the counter is,
I'm not betting on this, kid.
Right.
I'm just
saying I know that. But my counter would be then, okay, it's quite clear a lot of people after this election cycle are burnt out by electoral politics. And we have seen an absolute disengagement from traditional neoliberal media. For example, I wasn't really expecting CNN or MSNBC to be hemorrhaging the amount of viewers. That was a pleasant surprise because I'm not a fan of corporate media, but that was a reaction. And then also for the fact that Democrats really got a beating. So even if they were to try and do a Bill Clinton 3.0, I mean, there's enough people say, well, you tried this before with Kamala, Hillary, Biden. It's not going to work. It's not going to stand. Pete Buttigieg doesn't have what it takes. Beto O'Rourke or any of these other quote unquote superstars. And AOC even trying to step up is even a fool's dream. So then the answer is, okay, what do we do now? Because 2025 is this lull period in which we got to prepare ourselves for the midterms in 2026. Third parties and independents. And what I would say, and I don't know how you feel about this for third parties, on the one hand, independents, third parties got a lot of media coverage, more so than I think we saw in 2016 and 2020.
Agreed.
But then my criticism too is the Greens and Libertarians could have done a hell of a lot better job. It was not to my standards, and maybe my standards are just too high after being disappointed for the past 8 years covering politics. But the question is, where is the role of third parties and independents now, especially since people are done with it? And what's happening in your state in regards to third parties and independents? Because we had people like Jose Vega, for example, fight at least a very strong campaign against a well-established Democrat. But even then, that's just like a blip on the radar. We have to see something more being done, and engagement is key.
So let me grab a couple of these. You gave me a lot. Let me try to grab a couple of them. The first one is, yes, the problem with the third party piece, which I'm a big independent party guy. I want that to work. Of course I do. The advantage of the RFK run was exactly right. The RFK run, the glory of it was I spoke more about ballot access last year than every libertarian's ever spoken about ballot access for the past 50 years combined. So that was a very good thing. The second good thing is it did actually show people how ballot access worked, how the system was broken, how the Democrats are back. So those aspects of his run were very good, and I'm happy he did it for those reasons. But the bad part is he then at the end left and then joined the Republicans. That part kind of hurt us because all the money that he got didn't stay with independents. If you remember, I was trying to get the Libertarian Party to have a better candidate because I thought this was maybe our chance to gain the money and the time away from RFK Jr. They didn't want to hear it. The Greens didn't want to hear it. So they didn't do as well as they could have done. I completely agree. A lot of this was RFK Jr. sucked all the money out of the room. He raised $20 million.
Yeah, that's not to be denied. That was that
100%. A lot of that should have gone to both to the Greens and to the Libertarians. A lot of that should have gone to third parties. It didn't, right? So that was piece one. But piece two is I think the Greens made a big mistake. The Libertarians made a terrible mistake in their pick and how they ran, as always, which is terrible. But the Greens have made one mistake, and that mistake was they should have focused everything they had on Michigan. And I told them this, every single thing. Why? The whole goal about libertarianism, which I told them also, was the same thing. Focus on one thing. I told libertarians they should have focused on just getting Omaha. I'm not joking. The
Oh,
one
really?
the one vote, that electoral vote in Nebraska. How do I know that would have worked? Because the guy who ran independent Nebraska, Dan Osborne, he won Omaha as a Senate seat, but he didn't win it. Obviously, wasn't run for president. If the libertarians would have focused on that, they would have got one electoral vote this year. Now, why would that matter? Because that means we get a gold blip on the map and we make impact. We get a win. All they care about is a win. If the Greens had focused every dollar they had on Michigan, they probably would have broken 10, 15%. That would have been like earth-shattering. The goal is to get victories or change. Both libertarians and Greens got neither last year, and that's why we screwed up. We got nothing last year. Now, other part I'll bring up is Jill Stein had a good shot because the anti-war left actually gave her money. She raised over $3 million, which again, for her, that's good to do. She actually raised a lot of money. So she should have spent more time making that happen. So that was a positive thing. Libertarians didn't even raise $500,000. We really got hammered last year.
I would say in regards to the Greens, like one of the things that really upset me and I think really confused a lot of people was the overall confusion of, well, who's going to be the person carrying the banner for, because if we recall, there was the Cornel West situation in which he was with the People's Party. And then there was this big talk about him going with the Greens. And
I remember.
And when that happened, then he left, and then came in Jill Stein at the end, which is fine, I guess, but they can't keep on pulling her out over and over again. I mean, there has to be, there was that confusion, also the separation of votes. I mean, one could argue if perhaps Cornel West didn't continue on his campaign, there could have been maybe a slight 0.1% boost for the Greens. There is that possibility, but then again, there was absolutely completely unorganized. And I remember giving this warning in 2016 to a couple people with the Illinois Green Party, which is, you have this chance to lay down a functioning infrastructure so you could be ready for 2020. Here comes 2020. And we got Howie Hawkins. And with Howie Hawkins, look, and I know he's a Marine like you and I, but that campaign was absolutely
that was not a good campaign.
It wasn't. I've seen people fight out of a wet paper bag with more intensity and strength than I've seen Howie Hawkins put in that entire campaign in 2020. And then we get to 2024, which is okay. You had 4 years to get ready for 2024 and still nothing. And my fear is that now we're in 2025 and a lot of stuff is going down for 2025. We're going into now eventually someday we'll get to 2028. Here's hoping things are a little bit better and not worse.
I would hope so.
But I don't see any improvement happening. And then with the libertarians, I remember seeing the convention. I know my colleague Craig Jardula-Pasta was there covering it, and he was disappointed in it. And I know you gave your fair share of warnings for it. But I mean, are these parties also going to become irrelevant? Because we have to look at something, because the Democrats are just doing cringe videos and they're trying to make themselves relevant still. And while they are a major party, they have that monopoly. But what more can be done? Because I have to say we have to invest now further into ballot initiative states. Like, for example, there's a fight trying to make New York into a ballot initiative state. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, so many things. Number one is the parties themselves. It sounds horrible, but it's true. The party themselves only matter if we have good candidates. And good candidates means people who can speak well, who have charisma, and who are at least party loyal enough. And that can be challenging. Now, Cornel West is very good at speaking. I had him speak at the Libertarian Party of California, and he got a standing ovation. He's a great speaker. The problem is he wasn't really a Green Party guy. He was still kind of a Democrat, kind of in his heart. I mean, that was the issue. Like, he would say things like, well, Trump is a gangster. And the Green parties would go, okay, so Biden's also a gangster? He'd go, well, I don't know about that. And you can't be a Green Party member if you don't hate Democrats and Republicans. It doesn't work, right? You can't do that. And so he didn't get it. But I think I agree with you. If Cornel West would have actually stayed in place with someone like a Jill Stein as a VP or something like that, I think the Greens would have done much better. I don't think Jill Stein wanted to run. I think she ran because she felt nobody else would have, and nobody else was ready to. I think that's why she won. I know, Joe. We're not besties or anything, but I don't think that she wanted to run. I think she did it because she believed she had to. So, and that's a problem for the Greens. They don't have a deep enough bench to make that work. And I think the Libertarians had a similar problem. We were not ready for this at all. We were not prepared for it. We thought, oh, Dave Smith's going to come save us. That didn't work, right? So we had nothing also. But there is some hope, and here's the hope I think we're going to see. And I go back to Dan Osborne out of Nebraska, and I'll also go back to the other guy. Is it McMullen, I think, out of Utah? We're finding states that are so tilted left and right, the other parties don't bother running candidates anymore, right? So in Nebraska, the Democrats didn't bother running a candidate for Senate, U.S. Senate. In Utah, Democrats didn't bother running a candidate, right? So these people, hopefully, if they can join our parties, will become the stars. Now, Osborne's an independent in Nebraska, but he's a union leader. So he may be somebody that maybe the Greens could pick up. It's possible that could happen for the future. McMullen is more right-leaning, so maybe McMullen might be more someone, he's also a CIA guy, but maybe he'd be someone who might want to go towards libertarianism. It depends on whether this is where I think you might find people who you could pick who might be excited enough. Again, Osborne raised over $3 million too, right? So did McMullen. So these guys can speak. They can raise money. I think this is the bench. Now, there's a second piece here, which is the system. Your point is correct. The system is devastating to third parties. New York State is the worst. I mean, your state's pretty bad too, but mine's the worst.
I don't know. I think we're number one.
And here's why I say we're the worst. We were the only state in the entire union last year that did not have any independents on the ballot for president. The only one. We were the only state with no independents on the ballot at all. And we sued. RFK Jr. spent $20 million getting on ballot access. He spent $1 million just in New York State, and they threw him off because his address was wrong. I'm not joking. They said his address was wrong. And his address wasn't wrong, actually. He's a Kennedy. Kennedys have multiple homes. They're wealthy, right? So this is a true story. New Hampshire literally asked him, well, what's your address? You have to have an address in America to be run for president. We don't care where, but you got to have one. He said, which one do you want me to use? They said, well, like, where do you vote and stuff? He said, well, I vote in New York State. I have my license for practice in law in New York State. My fishing, hunting license, all in New York State. He said, then New York is your address. So he put that down for his address. It comes to New York, same address down. They go, no, you don't live there long enough. You live in California. It's a lie. You're a felon. That is how bad New York State did to attack him. So yes, they won it, but the problem is the system is completely against every independent running. They attack and crush and destroy. And you have to have someone like an Osborne or like a McMullen or someone like that who either is independently wealthy, which that always becomes a problem because then you get the Trumps, right? Or someone who's just popular enough. And I think guys like Osborne, guys like McMullen, you may not like those individuals, people, but people like them are the ones we need to bring up independent parties. Last piece I'll bring up, which is, you are right. Independent parties are more open than ever. You are seeing more and more people want to go there. Our job as independent supporters is to really promote the right people. You need a face to a movement, regardless of how good that movement is. You got to have a face, and we got to find the right face.
Exactly. So there's something else I want to address here, and that is, we can't deny it. There is a homelessness crisis happening here in this country, and in order to vote, you got to have a place of residence. And right now, there is a devastating fire impacting LA County, and we've all seen the videos, the footage of what's happening to the people in LA County. So shout out to everyone that we know there. Please be safe. But it's very clear that there's a failure of leadership, and there's also the idea of the fact of the American dream. And I know that a good friend of the show, Roger Meadows, he told me to reach out to you, and also a good colleague to RBN, one of Nick Cruz's colleagues, JB Font, in regards to the homelessness crisis here that's impacting every single state. And it's quite clear that the programs put in place here aren't really helping out the people, and yet our politicians are also not addressing this as well. And there seems to be a problem in New York State. And I was at least, we were talking a little bit back and forth, and I'm hoping you could elaborate just overall what the situation is, because prices are still going up. Reports are coming in that the job numbers are abysmal, and everything is still on its downward trajectory as we are a dying empire, and the people have nowhere to go. What comes next? I want to ask you that.
I wish I would argue with you about the dying empire part, but sadly, you are correct. Here's the issue. We have turned, and New York State's the best at this. Again, we're number one at lots of terrible things. The one
debatable.
Yes.
Chicago, Illinois will take you on.
We're gonna have to fight those back and forth. Yes, but what we do is we create a government industrial complex around everything, so that we don't solve the problem. We just grift off the problem. So what winds up happening is in New York State is we didn't bother. New York City is the worst at this. We didn't bother fixing the homeless problem. We just said, hey, we're having a problem specifically since the lockdowns with hotels. Can we just pay hotels to keep homeless people? Can we just do that for a while? And they went, yeah, sure. So they started paying them. Well, hotels said, wait a minute. So I can get paid guaranteed every day a good rate and keep my hotels filled with homeless people and just ignore them because they have no rights and not give them any good service because they have no rights and they can't fight back. Well, this sounds great. I just keep getting a check from the government to do almost nothing. And they were like, yeah, why should we stop this? So that became the norm. What happened in New York City became a homeless industrial complex. The hotel owners just kept getting cash. Well, then the next thing that happened after that is that was all state money. Well, then a migrant crisis came. So then migrants come. So then the hotel said, well, can we take migrants instead? And the federal government said, yes, this is federal money, which is just money print to go burr, keep printing money. And it's more. They went, oh, that's amazing. We'd rather have the migrants then. Let's throw out the homeless. So what happened is that the hotel said, well, get rid of the homeless people. Let's bring in migrants. Migrants have even less rights. They're not even citizens. They got no rights. That's amazing. So now I can just take advantage of them completely, give them no service whatsoever, just a roof over their head, and I get paid federal dollars ongoing. The Roosevelt Hotel used to be a hotel where you could go to and the tourists would go there. Now it's just a migrant facility. That's all it does now. That's all it does. It makes twice as much money and that did before because it has almost no cost. You don't have to give these people anything. They don't have any rights, so they don't bother. So that's what winds up happening. And now when the migrants came in, the homeless got thrown out. So now they're out in the street. They can't take advantage of the complex. And because it was an industrial complex, never meant to fix the problem, always meant to grift, there was no actual solution for the homeless. They didn't want one. So there wasn't one. It was all about cash. So that's why we have this big problem here in New York.
And there's also a problem here in Chicago. While it's, again, there's a lot to be said about Mayor Brandon Johnson and the migrant shelters here and overall how the entire city is in an uproar about it from the north side to the south side. And now there's a renewed attempt to recall Mayor Brandon Johnson, or either that there's going to be another challenge to the throne, which is going to be a whole other story for 2027. But what I recently covered, especially last year when the DNC convention was coming here, is that there were homeless encampments around the United Center. And what the city brilliantly decided to do was move one group of homeless people to one shelter area, but also then kick them out in the other area. And again, continue on with ongoing housing problems. And what we're seeing, too, all across the city is people being evicted from their homes. We're seeing rents rise up. And the programs that are there are either overwhelmed or either that just cannot provide any services whatsoever because you have two different groups, which I've said is going to be a powder keg that's going to explode. You got migrants on one hand, and then you got unhoused citizens and families who've been living here for generations going after the same pot. All the while, again, Mayor Brandon Johnson has failed to even step up to even addressing the local budgets here in the city. So now comes the question of, if we're this heavily strained, where are we going to eventually, address this situation? Because the Democrats did bring in the migrant situation. And let's be clear here, the reason why we got a migrant crisis because of decades upon decades of Democrats and Republican presidential administrations causing the war on terror, war on drugs, all of that, booze, instability. And there really isn't this solution. So I guess what I'm really asking is, because of this entire housing crisis that's impacting all of us, what can we do to effectively bring in the change necessary so that people can be housed, people can be protected? Because if we don't have that, we have, again, more problems leading to more instability.
Let me tell you what is happening and what we should do. What is happening is New York State took in about 200 migrants last year. 200,000, sorry, about 200,000 migrants last year. Many of them are actually leaving now. And they're either going to other parts of New York State or just leaving the country and going to find work wherever they can find work. Heavily, they're going to agricultural areas, which I think we knew this already, right? Heavily, but they're going to other areas where they can find work. They're leaving. They're just saying, you know what? You're right, Kit. It's not good here. We're going to go someplace, and they're going someplace. The sad part is what we've done is we've increased, without question, we have increased the black market, which is where the violence comes from, right? That's where the violence comes from, the black market. So without question, the black market grows and they begin to leave. That's what's happening now. What should we do? Well, I've been saying this for literally years. We have to create some type of Ellis Island event where we can start processing these people in a way where we can incentivize them. Look, the grift is going to happen, and that makes people angry when I say it, but it's going to happen. So let's create incentives to where the grift is to document these people and to vet these people. If we make that the grift, not the housing the grift, now we can fix things. Example might be recruiting companies running in Ellis Island so that they can get paid to put people into jobs, right? That may not be the perfect answer, but that's the answer I'm talking about, that style. There's going to be a grift. We're not going to get around. The system is made to grift. So if we want to help people, we have to set incentives so that the grift gets people jobs or gets people documented or whatever the case may be. And that's what we need to do. We're not doing that. When it comes to people who are homeless, we have to focus on housing first, obviously. But the key to housing first is it needs to be, and we see this in the Bronx already, it's happening here in the Bronx, is to have specific communities and groups of people who have similar issues together so they can get the help they need to get back on track. We can't just house. We must house and help. And the problem is we have not been helping at all. We've just been housing. Same issue, though. We've got to make it to where the incentive is to get people up and running, not just today they have a roof over their head. If we were to do that, that's how we can fix it. Sadly, very few of us are doing that. What's actually happening is they're just packing up and leaving and staying in the black market. That's what's actually happening. Which creates more crime, to your point, which makes everybody unhappy, which makes everything bad, which increases violence. That's what is happening.
Right. And I also want to just bring up something else here, too, because, look, Bad Cookies is right about this. And how we stop pretending immigration is an issue. It is just used to create hatred and division in the American populace, which is what corporate media and our political parties have done. And I even remember bringing this up way early on when we were covering the protests, like, hey, is there going to be anything done to protect it? Because you see this happening a mile ahead, where being in Chicago, living in this city, any program that's devised by the city council, I know, is going to be an epic failure.
Yep.
And anything that any Democrat or Republican politician comes up and says, hey, I got a great idea.
Yep.
Just remember that great idea is going to be nothing but a pile of crap. And we have to remember that these are people, all right? These were people that were also given a promise like, hey, you come here, you're going to be okay. And I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but we cannot deny the fact that there's going to be this ongoing rage and anger. And if people are angry, they're going to have that tunnel vision. So
yes,
I know that you got to get ready for your following up show that you're going to be doing later this evening. And again, I really do appreciate you making time out of your day joining us here. But what I want to ask you is, and I think this is a pretty good thought of just overall how we're viewing 2025. Everything happening so far, was it on your bingo card? I mean, you got two terrorist attacks that took place. Again, big distraction because everyone forgot about Luigi. Everyone forgot about Luigi.
Yep.
Just for a little bit. Don't worry. We did a Luigi story because P. Diddy is jealous of Luigi. Then you have Trump being virtually, that's breaking news today. That's happening now. Trump being virtually sentenced.
Yep.
And then, of course, then you also have the fact that you have this devastating fire that has destroyed countless homes, uprooted so many people in LA County. And then you have Gavin Newsom lying, saying he was on the phone with Biden. And of course, the mayor of LA, Karen Bass, absolutely quiet. So do you think 2025 is going to be a smooth year, Larry, or are we just in for a bumpy ride?
Let me cover a couple things. You threw a lot at me again. The idea of that migrants aren't a problem. If there's no plan, there's a problem. That's the only issue. I'm not anti-migrant at all. My city would collapse without migrants. I need them. And people get mad. You call them illegal aliens or illegal. I call them migrants because it is a generic term. That's why I call them migrants. It is a generic term. So that's why I use that phrase, migrants. But if you don't have a plan for an increase in bodies, there's a problem. not because the people are bad, because the system isn't ready for it. That's all. So make a plan. If you know you're going to have a large migrant community coming in, okay, make a plan. No plan, there's a problem. And that's the issue. It isn't the migrants is the problem. It's the no plan. I'm going to make sure that that distinction is made. Did I have this in my bingo card? I kind of did. I kind of did know this was going to be a disaster because we keep making things go wrong. It's just what we're doing. And our leaders have learned nothing at all. They have learned nothing. As long as they're making money, they're winning, and that's all they care about. Do you think that the New York State, you think Kathy Hochul and her crew care at all? No, they're all making money. They're doing fine. It's all good. They have no worries. She's still going to win. The system is made. So New York State doesn't even have term limits. So she can be governor forever if she wants to. And there's no one who can challenge her at all. She's number one in the polls for Democrats, even though people hate Democrats, but there's nobody else. So I'm not concerned at all about that issue. Now, when it comes to things like Luigi and such, this piece is a big deal, my friend. This is a big deal. We see it even with the fires in California. More and more people than ever are like, oh, wealthy people are in trouble. I don't care. That was not a thing 20 years ago, man. 20 years ago, be like, oh my God, the people lost their homes, or oh my God, someone got killed. Now we're like, who cares? I don't care. They're wealthy. They're part of the system. They're part of the establishment. The anti-establishment piece, I think in the long run is a good thing for us. I think that will help us this year in 2025. Anti-establishment is a good idea. I think that line, if that line stays for this year, in the long run, through all the pain, it'll still be good.
Now, first of all, Roger Meadows, I think I'm going to give you the final word on this one. Comment on the congestion tax, because even Mayor Brandon Johnson here in Chicago is thinking about doing a click, copy, paste on that. What is this congestion tax, and why do I need to punch the wall?
Okay. Congestion tax in New York is supposed to raise about half a billion dollars, about $500 million every year. Just the subway loses $800 million due to fare jumping. So it doesn't do anything. We're not raising any money on it at all. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. New York City, its budget is over $100 billion. If you're taxing your citizenry $100 billion, why am I paying anything for my subway? Why is my subway not just like, I don't know, a nickel, just symbolic 25 cents or something, right? Whatever. Why is it not that? I don't know why. If you tax me that much to where New York City is taxed more than Florida, and you can't actually give it away for either dirt cheap or free, what are you doing wrong? Number one. Number two, all it is about cameras. They paid a company that, of course, gives money to the politicians, a boatload, I think $400 million to install all these cameras and to monitor it for X number of years. This is all about monitoring citizens and giving money back to companies who support these politicians. It's not about making things better. It will not. It's not about anything. And what you find is there's two examples of congestion pricing in Europe. One in Stockholm, one in London. Stockholm, it kind of worked. London, it did not. In London, congestion came right back. It took some time. Congestion's right back. And what's going to happen in New York City? Congestion's going to come right back, because the idea is, wait a minute. So now they can start delivering at night. That sounds good, but the problem is these stores and these companies don't have staff at night. They shut down at night. So now you're going to have staff at night. Well, now I got to pay more. So now we all pay more. Who pays more? The average person. I thought that what the New Yorkers keep telling me, on the New York policy tell me, is we're going to tax the rich. Only the rich are going to pay. That's what I keep saying. Yet none of these policies affect the rich. The wealthy don't worry about this tax for two reasons. One, $9 is nothing for them, but not just that. They live and work in the same area. They're not leaving. The wealthy don't commute into this area. The wealthy live in this area and walk to work. That's what they do. So the non-wealthy, they're the ones who have to actually come in here. So it only affects others. This is nothing but a bad idea. It's not going to do what it says it's going to do. It doesn't even raise that much money. It's just another gift to the grifters. That's all it is.
One other thing here too, and again, Roger Meadows donated $12 on Rockfin. Thank you so much for your generosity. Larry, what are we going to do about these Democrats out and put some people in who are indies or third party to run specifically by using force of vote strategy to make Albany place a legislative amendment on the ballots that would allow us to become citizen or citizen ballot initiatives specifically for amended states. So I guess Roger's asking, hey, how do we really get the necessary steps forward, at least in New York State legislature, for your state to become a ballot initiative state? Because the difference between New York and Illinois, I'm a ballot initiative state. So we're doing somewhat good, but New York,
there you go.
Guys hate.
Well, here's the bad part, though. This is what most people don't know. New York State is a ballot initiative state. It's true, but there's a specific word that he uses that is not true. We're not a citizens ballot initiative. We can't put it on. We're worse. We are a ballot initiative state, which means people think you can have ballot initiatives. They think that Roger is wrong when Roger is actually correct, because we see ballot initiatives all the time. But ballot initiatives are brought up only by our state assembly. So basically they use it when, well, I don't want to be responsible for this law, so I'll allow it to be a ballot initiative so I can blame the people. That is what happens in New York State. So number one, we have to recognize two things. In New York State, we are not a citizens ballot initiative state. That's a critical distinction. But in New York City, we are, which is even weirder. New York City can do it. That's even weirder. So our system is so confusing, people don't even know there's a problem. So you have to get someone out there to say there's a problem, number one, and then to show value in ballot initiatives. That's the way you do it. And I think someone maybe if someone said like a guy named Larry Sharpe might run for governor in 2026, that might be something that we could consider doing. I think that's the way you do it. That's next year. So maybe. And then maybe a guy like Larry Sharpe runs for mayor. Who knows? I'm just saying that kind of thing could happen, and that would, get the word out. There we go.
All right. Well, I think that's a great note to end it on. And first of all, if that does take place for 2026, hey, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to have you on the show. I've been a co-host on Larry Sharpe's show as well, so it's been great having you on. First guest across the political aisle for 2025. We had Misty Winston, though, who was our official first guest for 2025, and she's done some phenomenal work. So, Larry, all the best to you. If people want to follow your work or support you online or watch your show, where can they go? Tell us, because we got a lot more to talk about on this, especially about how Gavin Newsom is lying.
Well, that's normal. You mean Gavin Newsom speaking? Okay, yes. In any case, yeah. So please, if you want to, guys, head over and check me out at the Sharpe Way. You can see it over here, the Sharpe Way on YouTube, Sharpe Way on Twitter, Sharpe Way on Facebook. Or you can check out Larry Sharpe. Larry Sharpe. I'm the most popular Larry Sharpe in the country. Larry Sharpe on YouTube, Larry Sharpe on Twitter, Larry Sharpe on Facebook. All the things. I'll have a show tonight at 7 p.m. and tomorrow at 7 p.m. also. Hope I'll see you soon.
All right, there you go. It's a great note to end it on, folks. We're going to take a short break, and we'll continue on with the rest of our main show.
Now what you're following, that's idolatry, that's just fake. And all that wallowing that you tolerate, that's not faith. The kings of colony watched autonomy make our graves. The kings of colony know no policy, only rape. Now once you fall asleep, it won't bother you what they say. But the kings of colony, while they slaughter, they still complain. And we say, please color me, still too solemnly, still too plain. All hail economy, praise the pharmacy, seas in flames. They're buying up Hawaii, and the smoke's not even cleared. Those vultures smelled the fire and an enterprise appeared. Investment opportunities where melted down communities leave vacant space BlackRock has been lusting for years. The council meets in private and they don't discuss survivors. Concerns among construction groups are all Lahaina hears. They'll wander through your city with this mocking sword of pity next to Oprah and her camera crew who tore the Trail of Tears, where footage flows as freely as the stream of liquid steel. steel and the pools of pure aluminum that trickle down your wheels. And Biden's here to say he knows exactly how it feels, cause he had a kitchen fire once and had to miss a meal. And people still believe that piece of shit deserves your vote, like he's not why supplies are being smuggled in by boat, like he's not why our citizens were forced to stay and roast. And he can't unfreeze your funding, folks, cause Azov needs it most. I'll bet my every dollar Biden watched it with a smile. I'll bet he knows the whereabouts of every missing child. He's just the kind of man who lives to trample something tribal, collecting culture's corpses just to throw them on the pile. Like he and all his buddies didn't dream about the day when those who dared defy the donor class were cleared away, when home insurance triples and you can't afford to stay, and your land falls to the hands of those whose windfall fan the flames. The state will take Lahaina and they'll bastardize its name, and tourism will swarm it all the same. You see, the state we left Lahaina shows the ground rules of the game, the planes that in the night ignite the planes. And if questions raised that reckon the potential use of lasers, I suggest you take a closer shave by way of Occam's razor. And if those civilians stood between this country and its gains, then there's really nothing further to explain. Because you may know this already, if you truly know our past, but it ain't the first occasion and it will not be the last where Americans are kettled in and made to bear the blast, are barricaded in and left for ash. How many in Lahaina now are lying there awake and still can hear the city we left leveled in our wake? They still hear all the people that we let the fire take, instructed from above to stay in place. So look to the horizon, cause a fire comes for you. Desire made incarnate of the power-hungry few who instructed the police to not let anybody through, to barricade them in, and so they do.